I believe that one of the hardest things to be able to do well as a tennis coach is to consistently and accurately observe and analyse your players. It's obviously a really important part of our job. Every day we'll be asked by our players about a problem that they might have, and of course they'll turn to you, the coach, for an answer. They'll expect you to know, to be able to spot, and to make a suggestion about how they can make that improvement. It's something that some coaches naturally seem to be very good at, while other coaches seem to find it really difficult. I think it's a real skill, and it's therefore really, really important that we continue to work on and develop and practice our observation and analysis. Here are 5 simple things that I'd suggest that might help you with the observation and analysis of your players. Number 1 is to have a process. For more years than I can care to remember, I've used a process called the 5 R's. It's really simple, and it stands for ready, read, react, racket, and recover or reposition. I like it because it's simple, and I like it because it helps me to think in a structured way when I'm watching somebody. And it works in chronological order. You'll find a lot of the technical analysis processes do. So it starts with the incoming ball or the receiving skill, and it finishes with the sending skill, the outgoing ball. You'll find that a lot of processes follow a similar time or chronological order. Perhaps you use the 5 R's, or perhaps you use another process. Perhaps you're looking for a process that works for you. Perhaps you've tried different processes that just haven't worked for you, that perhaps you haven't quite understood or have found too complicated. There are loads out there. You'll find them on websites and in articles and in books. But it's really important that you have some sort of simple way of structuring your thoughts, and so that you can learn to look at the right places at the right time. Quite often I find that coaches jump to the fault or the error, but they stop to think about whether what they're seeing is the problem or whether there is something that's causing what they're seeing. So it's really important to have some sort of standard operating procedure, a system or a process to help you to work through things in a structured way. Number 2 is to use video. With the modern technology and the quality of cameras on our phones these days, it's such a simple thing to be able to do, to be able to put a video on your player in training or in a match. You might have to get video analysis permission from the parents. You obviously can't just start videoing strangers, so make sure you've got video consent. But once you've got that, I think it's a really important tool for the modern day coach. As I've just said, watching a player and being able to spot things in real time is really difficult. So using video allows you to be able to watch things in your own time rather than having to do it on the spot as it happens. It allows you to be able to play the video back over and over again so that you can have several looks at it to identify what you think might be the problem. And thirdly, it allows you to be able to watch it in slow motion, because watching things in real time is really hard. Sometimes there are small details and they happen really fast, sometimes almost too fast and too small to see with the naked eye. So use video with your players. It's a real asset in modern day coaching. Number 3 is to ask a colleague. If you're lucky enough to work in a team of coaches, then it's a really good thing to be able to do. I think it's a really healthy part of working with a team. Let's imagine a scenario where you're on court with your player and you think that you've spotted a problem, but you're not sure. It's great to be able to call somebody over, another coach, perhaps somebody more experienced than you, or somebody that you think is really good at a technical analysis. Call them over and they might be able to confirm that what you saw is actually correct. They might help you to see something that you hadn't seen at all. But it's really useful and healthy to be able to call over a colleague to get a second pair of eyes, a second opinion on something. Number 4 is to create a list of what we call red flags. You're probably familiar with red flags on the beach. They're used as a warning sign or to spot danger. So these aren't exactly danger, but red flags are used in technical analysis to highlight where things are going wrong, where things are breaking down. If you think about it, if you work with regular players, or you work with different types of players on a regular basis, you'll start to identify that a lot of those players will have common errors, areas where things are commonly breaking down. Let's take a group of beginner adults. Let's say you work with a lot of recreational and low-level club adults. A lot of them will have troubles with the serve. And so you'll identify a whole load of red flags around the ball toss, for example. Perhaps that they are not using the arm in the right way. Perhaps they're bending at the elbow or at the wrist. Perhaps the tossing action is too fast. You'll start to identify things that a lot of players do which cause common problems in the serve. And of course, you'll see lots of problems in different game situations with different types of players. So I think it's quite an interesting thing to be able to do, to write down a list of the common problems for different game situations or different strokes that you see. And of course, if you're working with colleagues, as I mentioned in my previous piece of advice, then isn't it great to be able to share that list of red flags across your team? So I think writing a list of red flags helps you to be able to list all the common problems. And of course, you can add to that list as you become aware of new problems. And finally, number 5 is to watch the ball. So often when I talk to coaches about technique, they only look at the player and the racket. But watching the ball is also important in technical observation and analysis. I like to think that the ball never lies. It always tells you the truth. Let me give you an example. Let's imagine that you see a player consistently hitting the ball long. There will be a reason for why that's happening. So if you see that the outcome is the problem, the ball going long, for example, then you can revert back to the racket and to the body to see if you can identify the cause of the problem. And of course, there'll be a lot of other common faults that you'll see. You'll see players who consistently hit the ball short, perhaps balls that consistently go in the net on the serve, the ball going out at the tram line, whatever it might be. Those are all outcomes. And there will be a reason for that outcome being a common trait in some of your players. So once you've spotted what the ball is doing, or perhaps what the ball isn't doing, then you can go back to the racket and to the ball, potentially using the process or the checklist that I talked about right at the beginning of this video, to be able to identify where and why things are breaking down. So remember, the ball never lies. It's important that we also remember that playing tennis is ultimately not about technique. It's about being able to be effective with the ball. And usually the one who is able to laser guide or steer the ball into different parts of the court most effectively and most consistently is the one who tends to win. So watching the ball is a really important part of observation and analysis. And if you can link the ball to the racket, and if you can link the racket to the body, then you've actually got a pretty detailed sequence there to be able to look at to help you observe and analyze your players. So I hope those 5 things were useful to you. Perhaps there are some that you already do. Perhaps some of them are new to you. I don't know. I'd love to find out what you do and what advice you have in observing and analysing your players. Perhaps share the processes or any other top tips that you have in the comments below. But good luck with your technical observation and analysis. Remember, it's a skill. Some of us are good at it. Others find it difficult. But even experienced coaches will continually update their observation and analysis, and they will continually practice and look for new ways of observing and analysing. Good luck.